So, Dance Gavin Dance, post-hardcore band. I mean, they're alright. They're okay, I guess. I mean, it's not like I have their posters all over my wall or anything. Definitely don't own almost every album on CD. I would never, ever own tons of their shirts. And I most certainly do not have their fucking hot sauce. So obviously, Dance Gavin Dance is the greatest band ever made. Better than your favorite band, obviously. Everyone knows this. Every album, platinum hit, everyone loves them. There's no faults at all. Literally 100% perfect. Huh? The fuck does biased mean? I should mention that all of these are ranked in a vacuum, you know, one of those. To start us off at the bottom, we have Whatever I Say is a Royal Ocean. Wizrow is not my cup of tea. I know it's technically an EP, but I'm gonna count it regardless. If you know anything about early DGD, you know that Johnny Craig was zoinked out of his mind every time they had to record. And it really shows on this one. He sounds really slurred and mumbly throughout the entire album, and when John Mess is the one you can understand more than the clean vocalist, that's kind of an issue. The screams on this album are fucking crazy though. John Mess literally never disappoints. They are the #1 best part of this album. The instrumentals too are amazing. As per usual for DGD, they're such an instrumentally tight band. And all in all, I mean, it's a decent start to the band, but it's definitely not my favorite by them. Next up at 10 is Downtown Battle Mountain 2. I know. Cool your jets. I know you got your guns aimed at my face. DBM 2 at 10 is Blasphemous. Downtown Battle Mountain 2 is a weird one. Like, it's got some fantastic songs, but it's also got some real stinkers. This might be my least favorite Mess album. He's still great, just not as great. Like, just imagine there were 10 gold bars all laid out, and some dirty bastard comes up and takes one and just pisses all over it, and maybe spits on it a couple times. It's still gold, and I'd still love to have it, but the other ones just look a little more appealing. Johnny Craig is back for this one too, and he does a much better job than Wizrow. Really solid album on his part. But we all know the best vocalist on this album is Will Goddamn Swan! Best rapper of all time, greatest rapper. DBM 2 is 10th, good but not great. Next up at 9 is Selftitled. We're getting some Kurt Travis now instead of Johnny Craig. I love this album, which is weird to say while putting it at 9, damn near the bottom of the list. It's got some fantastic songs on it, like Alex English, Me and Zoloft, Robot with Human Hair Part 3, and even, weirdly enough, a feature from fucking Chino Marino from Deftones on the song Caviar. This one definitely had some weird calls, like the infamous Hot Water on Wool, which is just one song split directly down the middle, or People You Know, which is just 3 songs all rolled into one. But I love this album. The highs are high as fuck, and the lows aren't really that low. So the only reason it ranks so low is because the other ones are just so much better. Next up is the original Downtown Battle Mountain. This one has less overall great songs, but what it lacks in consistency, it sure as hell makes up for in punch. This album can just be like pure balls to the wall greatness at times. The Johnny and Mess overlapping each other and the sheer grandiose of the endings is insane. And Times New Roman, Lemon Meringue Pie, and Surprise 'Em from Cuba are downright classics. It's a fantastic first album for them, but it ranks 8. Next up is Happiness at number 7. This one's another fantastic Kirk Travis album before he got kicked out of the band and then went over to A Lot Like Birds, which is also another fantastic band. John Mass sat this one out, so instead to replace him, he had the man himself. Well, God, this is one of their funkiest albums too. Absolute groove city throughout the entire thing. It took me a long time to like this album though. At first it was way too pop punky for me, but as I grew to like pop punk, I grew to like the album a lot as well. This album is an absolute slapper. It ranks in at 7. Fantastic. Highly recommend. This next one is the first Tillian album to appear on the list, and buckle up because every single one from here is Tillian. And the album coming in at 6 is Afterburner. This one is interesting. However they mix Tillian's vocals in this one, I don't think I like nearly as much as the others. Like, they're great, but they sound weirdly spacey, and I much prefer his more grittier sounding vocals. That's not to say this is a bad album by any means. This is a God-given gift. 3 Wishes and Lyrics Lie were some of the first songs I ever heard by DGD, and I'll have a soft spot for this album forever. One thing I seem to be on a different standing on than the rest of the fan base is Andrew Wells on this album, because I really didn't like it. His vocals sounded rather boring and bland, and they really didn't catch me at all. He later absolutely made up for it though in Jackpot Juicer. This album is absolutely amazing, but it just falls short of what made all the Tillian albums so great, and so I have to rank it 6. Next up, cracking the top 5 is Acceptance Speech. Acceptance Speech is damn near flawless, and it would be if it wasn't for you. This album is also home to the Predator song, though it's an absolute slapper if I've ever heard one. Tillian is great here, and Mess is Mess, which is all I could ever want. Acceptance Speech is damn near perfect. We're reaching the levels of DGD that are absolute masterclasses. Everyone above here I consider sheer perfection. But Acceptance Speech is just a hair below, so it sits at 5. Next up is Instant Gratification at 4. Instant Gratification has no skips at all. Front to back, amazing album. And it's got some of the best songs they've ever released as a band, like We on the Night, Stroke God Millionaire, Death of a Strawberry. I would even argue that Awkward, The Cuddler, Eagles vs. Crows, and Something New are all on that list too. The only criticism I could even come up with is that the end song doesn't really sound like an ending song, it just feels like any other song on the album, which is a really minor complaint. Tillian is really hitting his stride with this one. Mess is as fantastic as always, and the instrumentals are just so nice to listen to. Any other time and it might change, but for right now, Instant Gratification is at 4. Now hitting the top 3, we have their newest album, Jackpot Juicer. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect from this one before it came out. This is the first album where Andrew Wells was an official member, and if you'll think back to the Afterburner section, you'll remember I wasn't the biggest fan of him. I was worried he was going to really drag down a lot of the songs, but when it actually released, I was very pleasantly surprised. Not only did he not have as big a role, at least vocally, as I thought he was going to, which is a good thing, he sounded really good in the songs that he wasn't. Will Swan was out of his mind with this one. Every song has these insane licks just thrown all over it. They've always been a band with really impressive instrumentals, but this might be my favorite of the entire bunch. It's incredibly impressive how after 10 albums they're still one-upping themselves. I mean, sure, they lost some of the edge they used to have, but what band doesn't lose it after so many years? All in all, this album is just really impressive. To be so far along and still improving just shows how talented these guys are. It ranks at 3. Now at 2 we have Artificial Selection.
We don't have to show
This album isn't as consistently good as the previous two, but the great songs are really phenomenal. There's a lot of Tillion in this one. You can really hear the loss of edge. That doesn't detract too much from the album though. It's one of my go-tos if I need really good Tillion. That's not to say this is a bad mess album or anything. The songs just seem to be more tailored for Tillion. This is one of the greatest selections of songs ever put together on a single album, but not the greatest. That would be the next one. Artificial Selection is at 2. And last but certainly not least, Mothership. The holy grail of Dance Gavin Dance, the best album they have ever released, and my favorite album ever. You just can't go wrong with Mothership. You can pick literally any song and it'll be ludicrously good. I can't gush enough how flawless this album is. Young Robot is the song that got me into heavy music. Frozen One has my favorite guitar work I have ever heard. Exposed is fucking beautiful, and Man of the Year is one of the most emotional songs I have ever heard. Also a fantastic closer to the album. Tillion is the best he has ever been. Mess is absolute peak mess. Will is lights out. And I haven't mentioned them yet this video, but Mingus and Tim are also just fantastic in this whole album. Let me try to put in perspective how good I think this album is. If we were to make a top 20 list of my personal favorite songs ever from any artist, Mothership would have 12 of those spots filled up. This is just the perfect culmination of all of their talents into one super album. And Mothership easily ranks #1 on this list as the #1 album by Dance Gavin Dance. I fucked up my necklace taking off all those shirts. I just want to edit, it's more fun.
These are what my summer fun consists of: pizza, my dog, brand new